How you doing, everybody? Vasu Vaddiparty, Charlie O, Casey Freelove. Guess what weekend it is? It's NCAA tournament time. And boy, after last year not having one, I cannot wait till another hour from now when the Texas Southern team and the Mount St. Mary's team play. That's how excited I am. I don't even know their nicknames. But fact is that there's going to be basketball coming in. It's play-in day. Texas Southern, Mount St. Mary's, they're the 16 seeds in the East region. The winner of this game will get Michigan on Saturday. The other 16 seed games are, let's see, where are they? They are Norfolk State and Appalachian State, and that winner will get Gonzaga on Saturday too. So get your popcorn out for today. It'll be a great show. And then Wichita State and Drake, 2 11 seeds. That winner will go play. USC, I think, in the other region, in the West region, and then UCLA, Michigan State in the East region will go play BYU in the East. So that's what we have. Play-in games today. Don't forget, we're going to have a special show. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast, by the way. Vasu Vaddiparty, Charlie O, Casey Freelove, powered by Staples Media, sponsored by Viget. Download the Viget app and use the MTMR promo code. We've got a lot to talk about with basketball, but don't forget, scheduling changes for tonight. We're not going to have a show tomorrow because we're going to be on a midnight Eastern for everybody. Midnight Eastern. So get the nighttime crowd out for NCAA March Madness preview, complete preview of all 4 regions. We'll have the 4 winners from the daytime for us on the West Coast, daytime and early evening. We'll have them all settled up for the brackets going into tomorrow. Tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday are the normal Thursday and Friday from years past. But you know what? It's a 1 year off. Why not play Friday through Monday? Who cares? Here we go. I'm just happy to have basketball back. And we'll talk a little bit about the NBA, the second half in full swing. And then it's never an off season in the NFL. It's just when games are on and games are off. But the NFL is always on season, and we'll talk about some free agency winners and free agency losers. And I'll be the first one on the dais with my Chicago Bears. But we'll get to that in a second before I get really angry. Moving right along. Casey, Charlie, how are you both? What's going on? Are you fired up about NCAA basketball, Charlie?
Oh, absolutely, man. I tell you, I was crushed last year when the tournament was canceled because I love this time of year, and I am just thrilled that it's back. I wished I could be in Indiana because I would have my press pass and I would be darting between venues because literally in Indiana it is close enough, folks, that I could be shooting between venues within the same day, and I would be there just having a great time. I wished I could be there.
Me too.
Casey, I was going to say, Casey, you should be as fired up as anybody because in about 48 hours, you're going to be knee deep in betting tickets.
Yeah, heading up to Reno to embrace the madness until my state of California, all 3 of our states, decide to change that up. We'll be forced to head to Nevada, but that's okay. They're open, and I'm looking forward to bringing basically all my Super Bowl winnings will be reinvested in stimulus package part 2, March Madness 2021. Now, guys, if you see me this weekend on social media, I will have my March Sadness 2020 t-shirt that I bought last year in memoriam of the Kentucky Wildcats run that could have been to the national title, in my humble opinion. So I'm very fired up. This is going to be a wild tournament. And Vasu, as we get started here, good news as the NCAA did more than 9,000 COVID tests and only 8 total positives among all the tiers. And none of them are players. Every team is in Indianapolis, save for Virginia, who I know we'll talk about probably in length tonight. But I'm fired up, and it's going to be very bizarre. One thing I want to point out as we get started here, guys, keep an eye on Lucas Oil Stadium, the teams that are playing there. We'll digest that tonight. 2 courts split in half. Kind of picture how they've done it in years past as far as, maybe like the bubble in Florida. It's going to be weird, and I really foresee low-scoring first halves in those initial games as kids try and get depth perception down, adjusting to the fact that there's only 8,000 fans at each court in a stadium that can seat 80,000 people. This is going to be surreal, Vasu, but I'm just so pleased that it's back, man. I mean, it really warms my heart that we're talking
the NCAA tournament going to all lengths to make sure that we get the tournament this year. I think it's good for everybody to have the tournament back. 2 courts split up. This is a high stake. They talk about the high limit poker rooms. Since we're a wagering show, this is a high limit AAU tournament is what's going on right now. So that's exactly the principle that's going on. If you're going to have one stadium with 2 courts in, that's exactly what the old AAU days. Used to play her in my days baseball, where you have 7 fields with all the prospects on and all the scouts going back and forth, just like Charlie was talking about, going back and forth between venues here. You can join us on Stables Media YouTube page live right now, as well as Facebook Live. If you're not live with us right now, please download and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get the podcast. Do leave some comments if you have any questions on anything that we're going to talk about today, whether it be football, the NBA, or NCAA. Also tonight, midnight Eastern, as I said, 9 p.m. Pacific. We'll get deep into the madness after these 4 winners come out today as well. All right, let's start with the play-in games. I'll start with Casey today. In about 45 minutes, we're going to have Texas Southern and Mount St. Mary's. Mount St. Mary's 12-10, Texas Southern 16-8. The line, Mount St. Mary's 1.5 and 133. I know we didn't watch a lot of it, but the reason I'll bring them up because I went to Ken Palm for all of these. Wherever you go, that's a good place to go if you're wagering anyway, if you don't know a lot about these teams. Texas Southern is 229th ranked. 133rd ranked, 229th in offense, 219th for Mount St. Mary's. 99 points every 100 possessions, 236, and 95.5 for Mount St. Mary's, which is 257. The pace of play for Texas Southern, they go fast. Mount St. Mary's goes slow. Mount St. Mary's favored by 1.5, but they've lost 4 of 5 coming into the conference tournament, which they did win the 3 games. Texas Southern had won 4 straight before they came in to the conference tournament. So I think this line is mismatched. I think we talked about it off air. Texas Southern plus 1.5, Casey.
Well, look, I mean, you have to basically, when you're handicapping these 16 seed games, the play-in games as we call them, you've got to take a look at basically who have you played, especially in this weird year when each of these teams has only played 22 and 24 games respectively. I agree with you. I think this line is mismanaged. Texas Southern played Washington State, Oklahoma State, St. Mary's, Auburn, BYU, and they beat Wyoming. Not that Wyoming's a standout team, but they are in the Mountain West Conference. And when you're coming from a smaller conference and you're able to pick up a W, that certainly matters. Obviously, these 2 programs haven't faced each other. I would dare to guess that neither program could name the city that program is based in, because it's the south part of Texas, I guess, and wherever Mount St. Mary's is. Go Mountaineers, the other Mountaineers in the tournament. But, these games are fun. These kids are here to play. And the thing that I like about it the best, Chuck, is that it allows us to get a look at teams that we would never watch in any other circumstance, regardless of time of day that it's on. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's a reward for these kids in the weirdest year of college hoops.
Yeah, Casey, that's one of the great things about the tournament is that this is a reward to student athletes. The 16th seed, why should we care? Well, these are kids who have played ball and given it all for the purpose of playing basketball and going to school. Now, one of the things, though, that comes true is because of all these little weird tweaks now where kids can play 5th and 6th years and transfers and everything else, you might see these kids pop up in major programs for a year. So you want to keep your eye on some of these stars that come out of these games, because all of a sudden they may pop up at Kentucky, they may pop up at Georgia, because some of these outstanding kids are going to get picked up for a year at different places. But you look at Mount St. Mary's, they won 4 in a row. They won and beat the spread in all 4 of those games, and they went over 3 times and went under once on the spread. Okay, now that's pretty interesting because they are a tremendously slow pace of play team. As a matter of fact, they have the 2nd slowest pace of play in the NCAA. Only Virginia has a slower pace of play than they do, and we know how slow they play. So that was interesting. Now, Texas Southern, they have how many did they win in a row? I don't know.
Something like 7 in a row, I think, including the conference tournament.
And they won the spread 5 out of those 7 times, but their over and under was all over the place. I think they split that or went 4 and 3 in that. So that's kind of all things that you want to try to figure out in all of that with pace of play, over under, everything else. So these 16 seeds, they're a little hard to handicap because they're kind of all over the place and they haven't played each other, and they don't have common opponents. So that makes it kind of fun to kind of say, it's fun to play, just don't play a whole lot of units.
Yeah. Let's move on to Appalachian State, Norfolk State. Appalachian State 17-11, 16-7 for Norfolk State. The line 3.5 for Appalachian State, and the total at 133. These are the other two 16 seeds. This is the West region. The winner of this game will go on to Gonzaga. According to my KenPom numbers, Appalachian State 205th, Norfolk State 207th of the 340 teams. Offensively, Appalachian State a little challenged, 99.5 to 27 in the rankings, but defensively they were 103.8. It ranked 206, whereas Norfolk State was 219th at 104.4. Their pace of play was 67.7 possessions per game, 72nd, whereas Appalachian State 65.7. They're right there with Mount St. They're right there with Mount St. Mary's in terms of possession and pace. They're 31st or 310th in the country in terms of possession. I've seen Appalachian State play. That's the upper Northeast Conference that they're playing out of, and I forgot. I think it's the MEAC that they came out of. Appalachian State's a pretty good team. I didn't see the Norfolk State game, but I like the way, even though the records are different, I was just looking at it. Appalachian State to me 3.5 points. Obviously, the casinos and the wagers and the line setters think that Appalachian State's a better team here, Casey. So just take a couple minutes on this before we get to the 11 seeds.
One thing, and again, folks, use every resource you can. I'm looking at oddshark.com right now. The thing that surprises me about this early action is that it's pretty balanced as far as consensus plays. Like App State and Norfolk State is literally 50-50 right now as far as where the money's going. And I know the different sites display different casino odds, but every one of these matchups is pretty close. I mean, Texas Southern Mount St. Mary's is a 53-47 disparity. Wichita State Drake's 53-47. And then the big one is on Michigan State, which we'll talk about later. But again, like Charlie said, you're not going to bet your whole bankroll on this because you want to have a weekend ahead, and dogs will be barking. I'm leery of any team laying more than a basket in these games because historically the underdogs have really done well in this spot, especially in these 16 versus 16 matchups. So am I going to pretend that I know a whole lot about App State or Norfolk State? No, I'm not, but I will lean on past experience and say that dogs are going to bark this year, and I think it probably starts tonight. I mean, I couldn't tell you who's going to win the game, but I can tell you it's going to be competitive at the end, in my opinion. And you've got to use those resources. Vasu's on the main one. KenPom.com is really going to be the difference whether you make money or not, probably over the course of this weekend. And Ken Pomeroy does an excellent job breaking things down. I would take a look at, other networks like the VSiN, Vegas Sports Insiders Network. They've got a great handy little guide there that you can look at. And there's a lot of places you got to go. So again, tonight, I do have a play on this game because I like points, and I like points in March especially. But it's a crapshoot. I mean, I might as well have my, one of my coworkers come in here and throw darts at a board as far as, really getting down to who's the better team on paper, Charlie.
I understand, Casey. One of the things that I like, I on these kind of games, I go a lot to BetQL because they do a ABCDF kind of rating on this, and it helps me a lot because, again, I don't know a lot about these teams. And in this particular game, I looked down, and the grades are almost identical. They give C's over to the overall grade. Offense, they give them both D pluses. To win margins overall, they give them both C's. But defense, they give Norfolk a C plus, but they give App State, they give them a B plus. So that's the one difference that you see in the game. So you got to kind of wonder, well, maybe defense might make the difference in this game. So that to me makes me kind of wonder. And again, when I look at a team and I don't know all that much about it, those kind of grades kind of help me. And again, like you said, we're looking at KenPom. We're looking at a lot of different things to try to give us a little edge here in this. And that's why we say research.
Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast. We're talking about the playing games right now. Let's go to the two games that are going to be 11 seeds. The first one on the docket will be Drake and Wichita State. Drake out of the Missouri Valley Conference, Wichita State out of the American Conference. Yeah, I don't know. We've seen so much basketball lately. Wichita State out of the American Conference. Drake favored by 2, 140.5. That line's been pretty consistent. I think it opened up at 1.5, Casey. I'm looking at Drake right now. Offensively, they're very good, 19th in the Ken Palm rankings. Defensively, they've given up some points, though, and that's the conference Loyola Chicago in there, and they're going to have an easy game as well. We'll talk about that tonight as well. But they're 126th in defense, and their pace is very slow, too, 265th ranked, 66.8 possessions per game. Wichita State, 67.6. So it's going to be a very slow-paced game. 140.5 seems like a lot for that, but I really like Wichita State in this game, even though they're 74th ranked. But their offense and the conference that they play in, they've beaten Houston this year, which tells me a lot about them. Then again, they go ahead and lose a semifinal game to Cincinnati over the weekend as a 4-point favorite on Saturday in a game that they didn't really play well. They should have beat Cincinnati in that game. So I'm leaning towards you on the underdog theory here. I'm liking Wichita State. I have it at 2.5, so plus 2.5 now for Wichita State for me on my service that I have, but it's still 2 here.
Yeah, Drake was the hottest team against the spread to start the season. They got out to a blistering 18-0 start. Part of that's based on the conference they play in and not playing much in the preseason. Look, Wichita won the American, which has a national title contender in their conference, that being the University of Houston. So I've got a lot of respect for the history of this program. I mean, the athletes that they've produced, Fred Van Vliet comes to mind, of the Toronto Raptors, and it's just a really solid program. Now, the X factor in tonight's game will all be spelled out in the first half. How will Shanquan Hemphill, returning from a devastating foot injury, perform for Drake? Because he was touted as one of their best players. He hasn't played in a long time, and getting reacclimated with your team at March Madness is maybe not the most ideal situation there. So I'm with you. I think Wichita State's a live dog. And one other thing I want to throw in here, guys, when you're doing your brackets today, if you're looking for a bracket buster, it's going to be out of either this game or the other game we're about to talk about, because the 11 seeds are now 8-10 following this play-in game historically in March. They are live dogs. They are here to play. And Charlie, I think this year, maybe even more so than years past, having one game under your belt in this bizarre situation with 1,000 fans or less, maybe depending on which venue you're playing at, is going to breed confidence. And as far as disrespecting Drake, I mean, I don't know much about Drake. They didn't play anybody. They're 25-4, but Gonzaga's undefeated as well, and they didn't play anybody outside of the preseason either. So my respect factor goes down a little bit as far as who did you play, what conference are you from, and also I know that it's different players year to year, but I just love the Shockers here getting 2.5, man. I mean, that's tasty here on the first day. And if I'm rating my plays, that's probably my top play of the day.
Well, and Casey, you know me, I kind of lean to who was hot down the going into the end of it, and the Shockers were the team that was hot coming down to the end of the season. Drake was kind of coming down to the end, and I like momentum. Especially when you're coming into a tournament situation. Through the regular season, that doesn't make as much. But when you come to a tournament situation, momentum, drive, attitude, belief at that point, those things all come into play, because now you're playing a lot of games close together. You're playing competition that you don't really know. You're only playing competition that you're seeing on video. You've got to put all those things together, and you've got to have a lot of belief that you can go. Well, when you got victories in your pocket that you know about, that makes a difference on how you're going to play. And I think the Shockers right now have the big mo on their side. And it really kind of surprises me right now, because also with the differences in the conferences, I mean, not to disrespect the Missouri Valley, because over the course of years, they've been a decent mid-major conference, but I'm really surprised. It seems to me that Wichita State's getting a lot of disrespect right now going into this game.
Well, it's recency bias, because they did lose to a team that's inferior to them in Cincinnati. We saw what's happened with Cincinnati on Sunday as well, too. And Casey made a great point about having one game under the belt. It probably is most important this year, because they don't have to travel. They don't have to go from Dayton to wherever they have to go. So they're already in the city that they're going to be in. And even if they have to travel, they're going to travel 50 miles at most to go to one of the other venues. By the way, the Drake Wichita State game, that's in the West region. That winner will go play USC on Saturday. So wherever USC is playing, that's where Drake or Wichita State's going to be. But I'm on Wichita State, even though they lost on Saturday. I think that game will fire them up and get them going. All right, the last one of the night, late night on the East Coast. Surprisingly, that's the late night game. 10 o'clock on the East Coast, 7 o'clock out here on the West on TBS. UCLA and Michigan State. Now, I haven't seen the Pac-12 all year, and of course, I follow the Big Ten as well as anybody, but UCLA in the Pac-12 started off hot. Chris Smith at the beginning of the year was a big loss for them. I didn't know how good they were going to be. Their point guard was kind of shaky. He came out and played well. Tiger Campbell, I'm talking about. They've got some inside guys in Cody Riley, but they're not as big as Michigan State is. Michigan State started off horribly. We know how bad they started off. They played well in the last few weeks. They beat Illinois. They beat Ohio State. They beat Michigan. 2 of the 3 were at home. 1 was on the road, I believe. No, I think all 3 of those were at home, and those 3 big victories over top 5 teams. So here's Michigan now, 57th overall. That includes the bad start they had. 2-point favorite. The lines come down from 136 to 133.5. UCLA 45th overall in Ken Pop. 26th offensively, 86th defensively, 330. So what's with all the slow pace games here? 64.7, 332nd in the NCAA in pace of play. And that's a Mick Cronin trade from the Cincinnati days. Michigan State 166 at 68.6 in possession and pace. 34th in defense. Does that surprise you, Casey, that they're 34th in defense? According to Ken Pom, the way they play, that's a slight favorite is 2. And 95% of the money, I saw this last night, and I'll give them credit because ESPN had it, 95% of the money from Caesars has been put on Michigan State, and 80% of the tickets have been put on Michigan State, whereas for Drake, 64% of the tickets and 80% of the money on Drake as well. So are we looking at UCLA going against the public, or are we looking at Michigan State coming through? Because I thought UCLA was very disappointing in the Pac-12 tournament, Casey.
A very important point I want to get out there, and I will reiterate this on the 9 o'clock show tonight. Don't forget, guys, this is the first year that a lot of these states have had legalized betting during March Madness because last year was unavailable to the bettors. Public money matters, and fading the public matters, especially in March Madness, more so than any other situation you're going to find. You got to fade the public, and I love UCLA in this matchup. Look, Vasu, you've seen them a lot more than I have, but I've seen them a little bit, and they've got 5 different players averaging double digits. Almost no other team in the tournament can say that. Michigan State, what don't they have? A point guard. What matters in the tournament? Having a point guard to distribute the ball to your other talented players. I don't think Aaron Henry alone can will the Spartans to this win. And when Coach Tom Izzo is surprised that they're even in the tournament, that's not a good sign. To me, that means that the players have already kind of mailed in the season. They probably shouldn't even be there, to be honest with you. The Big Ten, I don't know what Rutgers and Michigan State are even doing in this tournament, but that's a debate for another show. Bottom line, I think Sparty's gone. I think UCLA moves on. And let's not forget, if we're talking about, teams that have played well, yes, all the glamour goes because Michigan State did beat those teams that you mentioned earlier. But UCLA's losses recently all came against tournament teams, Colorado, Oregon, and Oregon State, who won the Pac-12. I feel like Mick Cronin has been looking for a breakout on the national stage. And it's so funny, Charlie, that we even use UCLA as an afterthought. You're a little older than me. I believe when you were a younger man, they were the industry standard of college basketball, and they want to claw their way back. And if there's any program that's primed to do it, it's certainly the Bruins. I love UCLA tonight, and I'm taking the 2 points for sure in this matchup.
When I was a younger man, I didn't know there was any other college team other than UCLA. And then I learned in the middle 70s there was a team called Indiana, but I didn't know that until the mid 70s. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But Casey, one thing that I've been looking at is the sharp money is running real Michigan State right now. They're projecting the sharps are 78% of their money and 63% of their tickets are going Michigan State. And I find that interesting, but the sharps aren't always right either. But you're right about the legalized betting, because Indiana is a legalized betting state now. So they have a lot. Illinois is a legalized betting state. And so now is Michigan. So now is Ohio. So all of that area right around the tournament, they're all legalized betting states. So you got a lot of money that's going to be flowing right around that tournament. So it is going to have some effect on the way that money's going to flow right there. So there's going to be some big money flowing there that wouldn't have been there even last year. Because if I remember right, I think this is Indiana, and I know it's Michigan's first year, and I know it's Ohio's first year for having sports betting. So it's going to be interesting to see how that's affected.
Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast. We just talked about the play-in games, the 4 games that are going to take place. One's going to take place in a half an hour. Drake and Wichita State will be around 3:30, and then it'll be Mount St. Mary's and Norfolk State in the later game, and then UCLA, Michigan State in the final game tonight. The winners will all move on into the next rounds, the second rounds, I guess officially they're calling them Friday and Saturday. All right, we'll have more on the 9 o'clock show tonight, 9 o'clock West Coast, midnight Eastern. We'll break down all the brackets. The 4 winners will probably be done by then, and we'll be all set with that. So let's move on to the NBA a little bit now. As we get going here, the NBA, let's put the lines up here as we have that. The Utah Jazz have 2 victories that they came out with last week after losing 3 of 4. They're an 11-point favorite tonight, 238 the total. And the Knicks are 5 at 206.5. They're playing Orlando in what's going to be a snooze fest that set the alarm clock for UCLA, Michigan State when the Knicks and Magic are on. The Jazz are at Washington, Magic, Knicks. The Hawks are a 7-point favorite after getting a couple of victories this week, including a game winner. The Suns, the Red Hot Suns, are 10.5, which I think is kind of low for Minnesota based on what the Lakers did to Minnesota the other night. 231.5. Portland and New Orleans will play a back-to-back scenario where the Pelicans absolutely blew a game Tuesday night, thanks to bad defense, which is what they're known for. Now Portland has come up to a -1 on that with a 240 total. And, of course, the Lakers have the Hornets tonight. The Hornets got blown out by Denver, who's playing really well right now, 7.5 and 224.5. What do you like about tonight, Casey?
Well, I like that the NBA didn't schedule too many marquee matchups so we can watch March Madness. I mean, that's the bottom line here. I don't have a game on here that I plan on even peeking on, except for maybe the Jazz and Wizards, because the Wizards are the most fascinating team in the Eastern Conference. I mean, love them or hate them, they score a ton of points and they play 0 defense. So their games are always entertaining. Reference yesterday if you want to take a look at how that goes. But I will say this in all seriousness, Pelicans Blazers 2 is going to be a good one because New Orleans has got to be just pissed at themselves. I mean, to completely blow that game that Portland had no business winning, missing 2 free throws late, and Dame Lillard and company getting that W. That was one of the more improbable games that I've seen as far as a fourth quarter blown by a team. So I've got to think that Zion and company are going to be motivated. They proved that they're the better team than Portland for at least 47 minutes the other night, but they've got to find a way to get it done. And of course, the odds makers made it even more difficult by putting the Blazers as a 1-point home favorite, just to make you pause before you decide who you're going to put your money on. Hornets Lakers is a decent matchup as well. Now that they've got Hayward back, Charlotte's a team to watch. Obviously, they're thrilled with their draft pick of Mr. Ball, and he's been playing well. And I think that team is a riser as far as teams in the East. Another team that's not in action tonight, Chuck, that we've talked about a bit, and SportsCenter referenced last night, the Miami Heat, and also the New York Knicks. And I can't believe that we're sitting here, in the second half of the season, talking about the Eastern Conference as much as we are, but I mean, the watchability factor is there, and I'm loving the Eastern Conference right now. And I don't know if I've ever said that in my entire life, being a guy that was born and raised in California.
Yeah, it's fun to have the whole NBA be in play for a change. I mean, I mean that's the way it's supposed to be, and it is fun. And I just want to tack on there. I intend to drop in on that Hornets Lakers game a little bit just because I want to see LaMelo. I mean, what an entertaining kid he's become. I mean, I was reading today, the passing, the bounce pass, the lob, the behind the back, threading the needle. I mean, what is it? I think 6.5 assists a game, 6 rebounds a game, almost 16 points a game. Boy, that's a pretty impressive rookie resume. And, he's not trying to hog the ball. He's distributing the ball so the guys that can score can score. I know Charlotte's really, really happy that they made that draft pick. And interestingly enough, I don't know what he said to his dad, but he's got his dad being quiet. And I mean that. I mean that in a good way. I mean, I think it's helpful that his dad's not being intrusive at this point. I think it hurt his brother for a while, and now that he's being quiet, his brother is playing better, so they don't have that interference, and they're both good ball players, and I'm happy to see that for both of them. But man, LaMelo, what a fine ball player he is, and I'm just enjoying watching him play.
Yeah, what a talent he is. Charlotte now 6th in the Eastern Conference, shockingly, and now Boston, who I thought was going to struggle, has struggled, and now they're in the 7th spot. The Knicks are in the 8th spot. Chicago in the 9 and 10 spot. So it's going to be an interesting 7 to 10. 7 to 10 in the West is San Antonio, Dallas, Golden State, and Memphis. Golden State proving they are Jekyll and Hyde, having a victory against the Rockets after two bad games. I'm sorry, one bad game, one good game, one bad game, one good game. Last couple of days in the NBA, I want to highlight a couple of games here. The Brooklyn Nets won on Monday night. They didn't cover against the Nets on Monday night, which I had the Knicks, so that was good. But they came back from 15 down. They actually played defense. No Kyrie Irving, no Kevin Durant. They beat the Indiana Pacers. Milwaukee Bucks, the second lowest output in the last 6 years for a first half total. They only had 31 points at the half. They come back and win in overtime, 109-105 over Philadelphia. Of course, Philadelphia's without Embiid. Celtics lost their second game in a row. The Cavaliers beat them, of all teams, 117-110. And how about the San Antonio Spurs? Down 24 points to the Bulls last night. They come back and get an outright victory, 106-99 over the Bulls. Talked about the Warriors. Curry hurt a little bit. We'll see how he is for Memphis over the weekend. But even if they had Curry, this is going to be a Jekyll and Hyde team. They'll get trounced by Memphis on Friday. I'm calling it right here. And a very disappointed LA Clippers, having won on Monday night against Dallas and then coming back and looking very lackluster last night against Dallas, 105-89 as a 2-point favorite. And I go back to Tuesday. Atlanta had a good game. Portland, New Orleans, we referenced. The Lakers, we did. Utah won against Boston. Miami had a win on Tuesday night against, I think it was Cleveland. And then they lost to Memphis last night. And then Denver's got 2 wins this week. How about Denver? As I look at the standings, I'm looking at the West here, Casey. Utah, Phoenix, Lakers, Clippers, Denver, Portland, San Antonio, Dallas, Golden State, and Memphis are the top 10. New Orleans, Oklahoma are 4 games back in the loss column. Sacramento, 5 games back. Probably, I'm not even worried about the teams that are 11th or below. They're just too many games back. New Orleans doesn't play defense, but I'm impressed with the way the Lakers have played defense. Phoenix still in second place. The Denver Nuggets and Jokic playing really well, even with the hampered roster. They've moved up to 5th, and they're right there. And then San Antonio, who would have thought San Antonio would be where they were? So let's start with the West here with you, Casey.
I don't see much wiggle room here. The only team I could see maybe fading is the Spurs, but this to me almost looks like the playoff grid. I just can't buy the Pelicans as far as getting enough wins to qualify. Maybe they'll get into that play-in game, but they're still a couple years away, and I think that they're not going to have trouble attracting free agents to build around Zion. So they're a team of the future. But the Mavericks, look, everybody should have bet on green last night. It was St. Patrick's Day, for goodness sake, and Dallas was wearing the green uniforms. If that wasn't a tip-off as to who was going to win a cover, I don't know what else is. But
well, what happened with the Celtics then last night?
Well, that's true. I guess you're right. The team with the actual Irish mascot didn't do well. But, yeah, I kind of see this staying the way it is in the lower half. I think there is wiggle room at the top. I'm not sure. As much as I love what the Phoenix Suns have done, I don't know if they're going to be able to hold on to that 2 spot as we get towards the end of the season, because obviously the Lakers and the Clippers have not played their best basketball yet, and those are 2 teams that are capable of running off, winning 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 if they want to, if they lock down on defense. And the entire Laker organization is going to change monumentally the second that Anthony Davis steps back on the court. So the West has been enjoyable. If you like defense, as Vasu said, the only team playing it is the Lakers with a paltry 106.3 points allowed per game, which leads the NBA, shockingly. I mean, there are some really disgusting numbers here. If you look at points allowed in the Western Conference, it's pretty pathetic. But all in all, I think the Jazz have proven they've got the staying power to maybe hold on to that 1 seed. And I think, Charlie, that as we move into the second half here, the big fight is going to be kind of at the bottom, because I still like the Golden State Warriors. I don't really like the Spurs that much, but they've got the best coach arguably in the NBA, and there's a lot to be said for that. So I think that Adam Silver's got to be licking his chops, knowing that as soon as we get through March Madness, all the attention is going to be on his league, and there's some good basketball being played for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Spurs, the Spurs could have a lot of influence on what's going to happen in the playoffs because the Warriors, who can figure out what they're doing right now, and Steph's been a little fragile right now. He hasn't been as durable as I would like to see. Just little nicks and things like that. That haven't made him as strong as you'd like to see. So if they have to go into as a play-in team, that's a little scary for Warriors fans. Will the Spurs be able to hold on to it? I never bet against Pop. I've just learned you don't bet against him. And I don't know. I think they might be able to hold on to that. We talked about Denver when they were kind of falling off, but we said we didn't believe that that's who they were. Well, now they've gone 8-2 in their last 10. So I guess we were right. They were better than what we thought, or what they were looking like. And so they've kind of come out of it. Phoenix, they're 8-2 in their last 10. But I do believe the Lakers, when AD comes back, they're going to jump into that number 2 spot. I mean, it just has to happen. The one that I don't understand, guys, and I am just as confused can be, is what's with this Clippers team? What is wrong with the Clippers? Is it the coach? Is it the players? Well, I'm so confused because this team should not be where they are. They're a better team than what they're showing. And I just don't understand it. I watch them. I see what's happening. And I'll tell you, if I were Bomber, I'd be, instead of being Mr. Happy, I'd be in somebody's face going, hey, I spent $2 billion for this team and I didn't pay for them to play the way they're playing.
Well, look, before we get to the East here real quick, I just want to run through it. So Phoenix has 12 losses. The Lakers have 13. And then 4 to 7 teams in the conference all have 16 losses. So there you go. That's very interesting to me. But San Antonio has the same number of losses as the Clippers, and anything can change, as Casey had said. So Denver, Portland, San Antonio. The Mavericks only have 18 losses, so they're right there as well too. And Memphis hasn't played as many games, so they only have 19 losses. So you don't look at it by the number of games they played or what the percentage is right now. You look at the loss column. So really, Memphis is ahead of Golden State from that standpoint. All right, let's just hit a couple of minutes here on the East. The Philadelphia 76ers, they're going to be with MD for another 2 weeks or so. 28-13. The Brooklyn Nets starting to play hot. They're playing some defense. The Milwaukee Bucks, they got a win last night in a game they probably should not have won. They have 14 losses, but then the drop-off is there. Miami at 19 losses, Charlotte at 19, Atlanta at Boston at 20 losses, the Knicks at 21 with the Bulls, and then the Pacers at 22. Toronto only has 23 losses, and then even Cleveland and Washington have 25 losses. So Chicago, Indiana, Toronto, Cleveland, and Washington, I guess theoretically have a chance to be in there. I don't know what to make of the Knicks. We haven't figured them out all year. Boston, near the top at the beginning, they had the COVID issues. I think they're still recovering. Marcus Smart came back. They're down to 7th, though, after their 2 losses, especially the one to Cleveland yesterday. But I was really impressed with the Nets yesterday, Casey, coming back against Indiana, down 15 in the first. I did have the Nets, so I was very happy that they came back. But, boy, 15 down to come back and dominate the entire second half and win by 9 says something to me that somebody's got them going defensively, because offensively we know they can do it.
Yeah, and don't forget the Pacers got LeVert back last night, who contributed a little bit. So I think it makes the win even more impressive for Brooklyn, as you mentioned, the parts that weren't there. And if they can average 124 points a game in the playoffs, they're probably going to win a lot of games, because what we've been looking for as a program is them to play a little defense in stretches, and that's exactly what they did in the fourth quarter, outscoring the Pacers by 11 points and securing that victory. By the way, side note, that was easily the most debated game I've seen on my online gambling groups this entire week. I mean, people were back and forth, very passionate with their plays as to why they were going one way or the other. And Brooklyn ends up winning. They've been a money maker. I mean, we thought maybe, Charlie, that the lines would be inflated on this Nets team and they wouldn't cover quite a bit. It's been just the opposite. They've covered in positions that I did not expect them to. And maybe I do, while I'm up in Reno, need to throw a couple of bucks on them to win the Eastern Conference. I will say this, though. I still believe the Sixers can be the best team in the East. The Embiid thing's got me worried as hell, though. I mean, I was about to go up there and throw 100, $200 on the Sixers to win the East at 5-1, feeling comfy. But that kind of injury, it affects now, and it could affect his entire season. And if he's not playing at 100%, they're not going to be able to win the Eastern Conference. I also find it kind of funny that we haven't talked about the Bucks like we had in years past. I'm just not buying Milwaukee right now. I know they won yesterday against Philly, but again, put the asterisks up there without Embiid. So the top of the East, very intriguing, and Brooklyn is clearly outclassed. One other thing, the Toronto Raptors have been devastated by COVID more than any other team in the NBA in recent times. Fred VanVleet yesterday saying that he has been in a living hell basically for 2.5 weeks trying to shake this stupid virus. That's an elite level athlete, 27 years old. So it kind of shows you just what this can do. But much like we were talking about in the West, we thought Denver would be a riser. All three of us had the Miami Heat playing better, and look at them winning 9 out of 10. I think that the Raptors are a team that's poised to make a late season run, and I do have them as a playoff qualifier, even though right now they are on the outside looking in. I think they're solid.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see what the Bucks do. They made a trade today. PJ Tucker is going there. Obviously, they wanted him because
Big deal. Big deal. I heard that. Sorry to interrupt you, Charlie. BFD. What's he gonna do? He's gonna guard Embiid at 6'5". Come on now. Give me a break. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Jeez Louise.
Wow.
Let me pull the spear out of my chest. I didn't say I liked it. I'm reporting. And obviously Milwaukee thinks he's going to do something because it was really kind of a costly deal. They gave up their 2021 first round draft pick to get him. They improve in 2022, but I mean, I was kind of surprised what they gave up to get a 35-year-old guy.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they're feeling the heat that something is not right there. Because then, that's a lot to give up for a 35-year-old guy. So they know something's wrong there too. Now, does that make you feel better, Vasu?
No, I was surprised that Giannis wasn't on the trade block there for that PJ Tucker trade.
I was just shocked. That was a lot of capital to give up for. And I like PJ. He's an okay guy.
I'll bet they were expiring contracts. I'll bet they were expiring contracts for DJ Augustine and whoever else was involved in that trade. But I mean, why not just put Giannis on the block and go get the Lakers? Go get all the Lakers. Jesus Christ.
Milwaukee's side, I'm just going, what are you thinking?
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point.
Come on. That's just nuts. Now, Brooklyn, I continue to be impressed with them. Remember, we talked about how are they going to distribute the ball? How are they going to share the ball? Well, shame on us. They've learned how to do it. I mean, good heavens. I mean, these guys want to win. They want to win. Philadelphia, as Embiid goes, so go the Sixers. I mean, that's just the bottom line there. I mean, he's just too much of a factor, and he would be that way with no matter what team it would be. Miami, it'll be interesting, and they just got Trevor Ariza today. I like Trevor Ariza. I think is he going to be a superstar there? No, because Trevor Ariza is not a superstar anywhere he goes, but he's an important piece, and he can be a really important piece for a second unit, and I think that's only going to improve them.
That's a good trade for Miami, considering they had to get rid of the problem. Myers Leonard, Oklahoma City became a sacrificial lamb.
Bye, Myers. See you.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you what's going to happen with Brooklyn here. They're distributing the ball. It's very easy to distribute the ball. They got to figure out how to play defense. But if you got one superstar sitting out each game, then you don't have to worry about distributing it 3 ways. You just distribute it out 2 ways. And with Durant going to be out 2 weeks more, Kyrie Irving had the night off last night. We'll hit all the NBA as the time goes on right now. We have NCAA. Now, we said at the beginning at the show, the NFL does not have an off season. They have draft days. They have TV shows for the combine. They have obviously the games. Sometimes the games are secondary compared to everything that goes on with the NFL. So some of the free agency winners and losers we have here, we'll just hit it by division. The NFC West, the 49ers, I think, won that division. Although the Rams have done a good job with getting Stafford, re-signing a couple of wide receivers. Leonard Floyd comes back for 4 years. Seattle, I don't know what Seattle's doing. Arizona signed A.J. Green. They got J.J. Watt. How about the Raiders trading Rodney Houston to Arizona for their center spot? The Raiders have given up 4 of their 5 offensive linemen and barely got anybody back. They've gotten some defensive guys back. But what's your quick takes on the NFC West, Casey?
Well, I think you're talking about the team that I think's done the best, the Arizona Cardinals, who I'll be betting the over when the win total is put out there. Look, AJ Green, when healthy, I know he's older now. That was one of the best 5 receivers in pro football for many years on arguably the worst franchise in professional football history, the Cincinnati Bengals. They're doing a great job of getting targets. That's the bottom line. Kyler Murray said, bring some guys in here that can help me. They've done nothing but aid that quest. I mean, I really like the way this team is made up right now. Now, the question they'll have is running back, because you've got Chase Edmonds penciled in as the one back right now, Jonathan Ward. Don't be surprised if you see Arizona go after a running back in the draft this year. I think that would be a good move. I like what the 49ers have done. They talked about key players they wanted to re-sign. Every day on my sports reports here in Northern California, I'm talking about another signing. And I think Trent Williams is an absolute stud, a guy that I would have on my team any day of the week. And I think that this NFC West, Vasu and Chuck, is going to be just an absolute beast of a conference. In fact, I may have just talked myself out of betting the over on the Arizona wins, because unfortunately they got to play 6 games against that damn division. And that is a good division right there, Chuck.
Charlie, hang on one second, Charlie. Charlie, you cover the 49ers. Trent Williams, Verrett, Alex Mack, Usix, mostly. They just let Solomon Thomas go at free agency to the Raiders. So, but they look like they're in good shape going into 2021.
Yeah, I thought they were in great shape until I found out today they just brought Joe Flacco in to talk to him about being a backup quarterback. And I had to vomit in my trash can here. So I was really happy until I heard that. But the Williams signing, in all seriousness, the Williams signing was huge. They had to have that signing, and there was a lot of competition to get him, and getting him back in the fold, that was mandatory. And I think that's there. And they also seem that everything seems to be settled down now in the quarterback situation. And they're starting to seem like they're bringing the team together now. And I think that's important for them. So, yeah, I think they're putting themselves together, and the team's starting to take shape.
Let's hit this Deshaun Watson situation real quickly. Obviously, things have come out about Deshaun Watson with 2 massage therapists. Don't know the whole story. Obviously innocent until proven guilty. But this is the Houston Texans, guys. We've already ripped them all year as it is. Something in the back of my mind, when I said Oliver Stone conspiracy, something in the back of my mind tells me that this could be a setup of some kind that makes him look bad to the point where teams don't want him, and then the demand for him is not there. They just signed Tyrod Taylor to be their quarterback if, in fact, he does hold out and doesn't play, because it doesn't look like he's not going to be traded. They've tried to do things in that division in terms of keeping up with everybody else. Indianapolis got Carson Wentz. They've signed Marlon Mack. Jacksonville has done some stuff with Shaq Griffin. They've signed 7 players for Urban Meyer. Even Tennessee has done some stuff, too, as far as getting Bud Dupree on defense. I think defense is where they lack. But this Deshaun Watson situation, Casey, has got me perplexed. And I kind of want to go conspiracy theory, but the better part of me says no. But that's not a good situation to be looking to trade for your quarterback.
It's the worst sports situation, as far as a city as an entirety is Houston, Texas. I mean, it's an absolute disaster. And don't think we forgot about you, Astros, because I'm going to be out there at the Coliseum letting you know that you cheated, because you did. That's a asterisk championship that I was very excited about. I know we're talking Texans football here. Look, I'm looking at the depth chart, Charlie. It's a disaster. On defense, they've got one brand name player, Whitney Merciless, their linebacker. I don't know who the rest of these guys are. Offensively, short guys, Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb, basically the same player as your top 2 receivers, and no big kind of guy that can go up over the middle and catch you the ball. Jordan Akins at tight end doesn't really do it for me. And I think Vasu's line of thinking is correct. Maybe they are kind of getting him out there in the media to detract from the value or something. I don't know why you'd want to embarrass your own quarterback, and I don't want to make light if any of those things are true, because that's kind of gross if some of these allegations are true. But that place is an absolute just dumpster fire. I wouldn't want anything to do with them. And the funny thing is, the Jacksonville Jaguars, an afterthought, as we're talking about this division as a whole, really are the most intriguing team in the division, because they brought in Urban Meyer. They're going to bring in Trevor Lawrence. Hell, they got a swimming pool at their stadium, and they actually had fans in the stands last year. So let's go Jags. I'll certainly be watching more of them than I will be of the Houston Texans. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my first hope is that I want it to be either an Oliver Stone thing or disinformation or whatever it is, because I'm just so tired of these things. And for the young guy, I want it not to be true.
Yeah.
I really do. But come on, guys, stop it. There's a way to stop this. Get your massages at the team facility by some trainer, okay, with other people in the room. You get it done there, and this all stops.
Yeah.
Okay, it just stops, because if you're not, they're coming for you. I mean, how many incidents do you have to see that if you don't do that, they're coming for you? Uncle Charlie's talking to you now. Okay. I know the pretty girl with the long fingernails feels good on the back. Okay. But you know what? It's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to cost you a lot of money and a lot of heartache. Let the 200-pound guy, from the Ukraine and go, here, I'm going to hurt your quads now. Let him do it. You'll still feel fine.
All right. Well, with that, we'll hit the rest of the free agency later on. Now we'll hit the rest of the free agency later on because we're getting close to game time here and we're running out of time here. So lots to talk about tonight. Don't forget midnight Eastern, 9 Pacific tonight with the entire March Madness 64-team field going on as well. We'll have the 4 winners of the playing games. The first one's going to start in about 5 minutes here. I believe that's the Mount St. Mary's game that's going to go off first. Obviously, we got NBA basketball that's going on as well, too. The second half of the season just started. We'll have that, but we'll delve into free agency more. Save me from having to talk about my Chicago Bears, so that's good from that standpoint. And then we've got some programming notes to tell you before we get to picks here. So tomorrow there'll be no show. Tonight we'll have the midnight show for the tournament, and then we'll be back on Tuesday at 4:15 after the first and second rounds are done as well, too. And then 2 weeks from now, opening day for baseball will be there. We'll have a baseball preview show as well. If I can talk these guys into another midnight show, then we'll do it then on the March 31st before opening day, April 1st. All right, with that and all the traffic jams and T's crossed and I's dotted, let's get to our picks. Casey, go ahead with your picks.
You see them on the bottom of the screen. It's a dog day afternoon. I'm riding with 3 of them. Give me UCLA. Hell, I like them on the money line. Sparty's going home tonight. Wichita State is being devalued because Drake won 18 games in a row against nobody, and the Shockers are the better program. They will win that game as well. And then Texas Southern, this is going to be a battle to the end. I could literally see this being a 1-point victory either way, but I don't like any of the favorites today, guys. I'm staying away from that no-fault game. But bottom line, I think dogs are going to bark this entire tournament. The public's going to lose their ass betting on favorites. And I just really like these. By the way, a little tease for tonight. I did send some money up to Reno ahead of myself today, guys. I'm betting the ones that aren't named Gonzaga. I've got 50 on Illinois to win it, 50 on Baylor to win it, and then I threw a little tiny side bet on Oklahoma State. You've got to get these bets in now before the tournament tips because the value's all going to go away. Last point, Charlie, before I throw it to you. If you're going to bet Gonzaga to win it, you're an idiot. You might as well bet them every single game. You'd be better off instead of getting 2-1 on your money and having to wait for 6 games in a row. They have to win 6 in a row for you to get 2-1 on your money. Anybody that's played poker or understands statistical odds knows that's a stupid bet. So please, I implore you, if you're betting futures, do not bet on Gonzaga. That's my message of the day.
And my line is 1976. 1976. Indiana, last team to go undefeated all the way through. Okay. Most of you weren't alive. I was. And this team is not that team. I'm going to tell you that right now. Okay, here we go. I like Mount St. Mary's. I'm going to take them. I like their pace of play. I think that's going to make the difference. Appalachia State and Norfolk, I can't get a handle on that game. Sorry, folks. I can't get one there on that game. I'm going to take the Shockers. I'm going to fade that one. I like them in that game. And then we come to UCLA, Michigan State. Guys, I just don't think the Pac-12 has prepared them to go up against Michigan State. I know the Spartans have no business being there, but I don't think the Bruins do either. I'm going to go Izzo and the boys.
Don't forget, guys, when we talk about the teams that are coming in, remember there were 3 extra spots that were available that normally weren't given because of the Ivy League not having a conference, not having a representative, and then the other two conferences. There were 37 at-large bids given this year, so 3 extra bids if you include the Ivy League in there. So maybe UCLA or any of these other teams we're not going to be in there to begin with. So all right, my picks for tonight. I'm going to go with Texas Southern plus 1.5 going off right now. Appalachian State minus 3.5. Wichita State plus 2.5. And Michigan State -2 tonight. I just think they're just gonna do better in Indianapolis right now based on what I've seen on UCLA in the last week. So those are the 4 picks I'm gonna go with in college, and then 1 pick in the NBA. I'm gonna go with the Phoenix Suns. They're red hot. I'm gonna lay the 10.5 on Phoenix tonight, and I'm going to take them tonight, and I'm going to take the over in the Charlotte Lakers game, over 24.5. So those are the 6 I'm going to go with. We won't even get into spring training baseball right now of what I did, but I did go 3-0 yesterday in spring training baseball, and I got a couple things going right now. So we'll just see how that goes before we get into tonight. So don't forget, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on the West Coast, right here on Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page. We'll break down the entire NCAA tournament field with the 64 teams after the 4 winners today. We'll be back on Tuesday after the first and second rounds go from there. So we'll look forward to see you. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live. Thanks to everybody on Stables Media. If you miss any of it, download and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcast. And don't forget to get on Viget and use the MTMR promo code. They've got March Madness contests going on everywhere. For Casey Freelove, Charlie O, I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. See you tonight at midnight Eastern, 9 Pacific, right here on Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page. That's the Make the Money and Run podcast for today. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy the games, and we'll see you tonight.